I feel like it has a fake ending because it says there's another 40 seconds left in the song. So I was waiting for it. I guess that's it. Alexi picked the song today. It's a group called Jungle. You said you saw him recently in concert?
Yes. So can everyone hear me and
We
see
can
me?
hear you great. Yeah.
Hello. So hi everyone. Yeah, so the music came from the band called Jungle, and if you liked that song, I think you will like all of their music because it all has that feeling to it. And actually, I think it's a really great place to start out our discussion because I just saw Jungle live, and what I um what I'm thinking about, and I have other things that I prepared, but what I really just thought about that I think is really interesting is the two things. One, when you are in a live setting with someone, which what you all are doing is a combination of like in-person and remote work, right? At some point you're interacting with people in real life often. Is that true? Or is
Yes,
that
of course.
that's true,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
huge part of what you're doing.
Yep.
Um, and just how profoundly impactful and different the in real life interactions can be with people, and how much it is not a neutral experience. It is never neutral when you meet, like when I've met like people I admire in real life. It's never like, it's always like this was great and exceeded my expectation, or it was like it's just never neutral. And I think it is so important to recognize how impactful the in real life interactions are. But the real thing I wanted to point out was, if you can see Jungle in concert on this tour, you should. But what I will share that was most special about it was how specific the choices they made were, in terms of the concert. And this will relate back to us, was overwhelmingly red. They chose this color design, they chose all this stuff, and it was red. It was like the whole experience was red. The screens behind them, the lighting. So my memory of it was so specific. And what I enjoyed was watching, it's not that I had to say red is my favorite color or this was the perfect color. It was that they made a decision that was specific, and I remembered it. And I think so. I'm a filmmaker, I'm an Olympic athlete, and I'm a writer. And I think with movies, the thing that is most pleasurable to enjoy about a movie is watching the decisions that somebody made. And it doesn't always have to be the decisions I would have made. And when I think about, like, and look, I'm not trying to be like, when I think about the things you do, but it's like when I think about it, I think that the impactful thing about your interactions with people must be that it is not neutral because you're in real life, and also whether or not there are decisions that these people would have made, whether it's like the way it's presented or this and that. The most impactful thing is to make decisions and to lean in and not be kind of like vague and neutral. And I wanted to point that out because um it it, I feel like everything in life that is not nature is a human decision. Anyway, that was an esoteric beginning to our talk, but I just think
We're going deep early.
we're getting deep early. But I
Yeah.
think what I mean is that, like, something I've been trying to do lately is kind of let go of the fear of making wrong decisions, but really know that like decisions and just trying things is more important than like not, essentially. And that's, you can extrapolate to mean whatever you'd like it to mean with what you're doing in life, in work, and otherwise. But I just wanted to share that because it was such a pleasure to watch this band, but not just their music, but them in real life, and then these decisions that whoever designed everything made. It was just a joy to step into a world, and it feels like you're welcoming people into all these worlds. And I'm sure those experiences for people are not neutral. So okay,
Okay,
I
that's genius. So I'm going to break it down and then we're going to get
yeah, yeah,
started. So
yeah.
Alexi, thank you for
No,
joining
let's
us.
just make it a discussion.
It is. It's great too. There's a couple things you said. It's just make the decision to try instead of not. That's just, folks, write that down because that's really smart. Something my wife, I think, gets tired of me saying all the time, Alexi, and I come from a TV background. I was a TV news producer before I got in real estate. When I watch movies, I often will talk about Oh, I really love how they shot that. I mean, I say it all the time, how creative
Yeah.
things are. That's what I'm watching, is how they shot things, the angles and stuff like that. So I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the
Yeah.
difference of being in person versus virtual. Like, this is our second time with you digitally. We've tried to get you in person, but you like run marathons on the weekend. We do events and stuff like that. So we haven't worked it out yet, but we will eventually, because you're so fun virtually that, again, I think an in-person experience with you would be great. So tell Liam, we're going to figure it out someday
I
that
would
we're
love
going to
that.
have you in person too.
Well, and I love seeing on the chat how everyone is from all these different places. So it is really cool to be here together. And you know, to that point about decisions, one thing I'll also add is that I'm a long distance runner, but I'm not like, I don't train super hard for the Olympics anymore, but I decided to run an 100-mile race recently, which may make you be like, we have nothing in common, but it was like, whatever. I had a crush on the opportunity to try this. And the advice I got going in from, I had a pacer, and it's this like 24-year-old ultra running guy who does a billion of them. And the best advice he gave me that I wanted to share with you is, he told me that you need to make lots and lots of small decisions, and you can't labor over any one of them. And what he meant was, like, I was going to be out there for like 24 hours moving, running, walking, whatever. You're making so many decisions. Should I run? Should I walk? Do I drink water? Do I eat mashed potatoes? Do I pass this girl? Do I just all the millions of things? And it was such good advice, because had he not told me that, I would have probably thought too much about every decision and wasted a lot of willpower, a lot of energy making the decisions and worrying, was this the right decision? And he was basically like, there aren't like right and wrong decisions. Like, it's just make the decision and then you can shift. You can always make another decision. And I just thought that was so brilliant, and it really did like make the race possible for me. And I don't know how many decisions you all need to make in a day, but I wanted to share that because we were just talking about the pleasure of seeing someone's decisions presented visually, right? But we're
Yeah.
also talking about, well, how do we make those decisions? And it's like, you just make them, because movement is progress no matter what, and you can always keep pivoting. But like, I don't know, I think about decision making as like, you're in like an underwater swamp, and there are like all these like there's like kelp and things everywhere, and decision making is just like, just keep going, like just keep moving through this like thing you're doing. So I think it was a freeing thing to decide in my life. There are decisions to go slowly about, but not every decision has to take like all of our willpower and thought. Some decisions should just be made, right?
I know you're speaking to some people, definitely, because some of us get stuck in decision making. Can I pause real quick?
Yes.
And
So
we
I
didn't do
love the
like an
structure
official
of this.
welcome. Well, we
Oh,
didn't officially welcome you. And so there are definitely some people watching, because we're on Facebook too. They're going, who is this lady talking about decisions? So I want to introduce you, and then let's get after it.
that sounds
Your
great.
name's Alexi. Your name's Alexi, and you, like you said, have done many, many things. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and you've got a book out, Bravey. You have the new young adult version of Bravey out, which I bought for my 11-year-old daughter, Naomi. And so, if many of our people in our group have Bravey, but if you don't have Bravey, go get it, because you're going to learn a lot of stuff from Alexi in that. You are an elite athlete and runner, and you competed in the 2016 Olympics in Rio. You're a Greek American, so you ran for Greece in that. You set a national record. Somebody brought this up the other day. You own the national record for the country that invented the sport.
That's correct.
I mean, how cool is that? I
Mm.
think that's so awesome that somebody brought that up. Like, that they invented this, right? And you have the national record in the 10K for Greece in the Olympics. And that was the Olympics 2016 Rio Games that was your personal best 10K too, correct?
Yes, and the last one I've run.
You haven't run one since.
I'm good. Sometimes
Yeah.
you do things and you're like, I feel that I've done it. I
Yeah.
feel I've done it.
We invited you to come to here in November, and you can't, because you'll be in New York City our thing is the same weekend as New York City Marathon. and you're running the marathon, but not as a competitive runner. Tell them what you're doing in New York City.
Yeah, so I have let the sport grow with me, and in lieu of wanting to run 100 miles a week, which is what I used to do, I still like running. And so I've been doing a combination of guiding for blind athletes in races who are trying to go to the Paralympics, kind of dancing through races in my own way, like moving through them and like bringing joy and trying to show that joy and performance are not mutually exclusive. And yeah, so in New York, I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure who and how I'm going to run it, because I don't think I'm guiding Lisa in as a blind athlete. I think I might be running in my own like fairy-like way through the race. And that may sound silly, but I'll be honest with you, like running is such a furrowed brow, like kind of type A sport, that I think it is really important to see people in pain and effort and then see some people smiling. So I think I'll be doing something like that, and I'll be wearing glitter, and I'm just gonna try and see what feels expansive to me. And the next thing I think we could talk about, if I can
Go right ahead. The floor is yours. Yeah.
But I like this dynamic, and I feel like us coming in and out of this conversation is a really nice format for this, because it's more buoyant and dynamic. So like I talked about like what feels expansive to me, and something that I learned, and look, maybe today is going to be all about decision making, because when I started to shift out of competitive running, I moved to LA. Someone was asking where I live. I grew up in the Bay Area. I went to school in New Hampshire and then Oregon. I lived in Oregon, trained for the Olympics. I moved to Mammoth Lakes, California, which is like Yosemite area with a lot of altitude. And then I moved to Los Angeles. So I live in the Valley in LA. But when I moved to LA, I started to train less with these kind of training groups, and I was still running, but I was having more fun. And I found myself going roller skating on Thursdays and in Glendale at the Midnight Rollerway. And I did not understand. I was like, what is this impulse to like go roller skating? I have always been a really driven person, and I wouldn't even be able to do that during my intense training years, because I would need to go to sleep. And I was doing it every week, and I talked to a mentor, and I was like, of course, this is so fun, but I was like, is this escapism? Is it a midlife crisis? Is this who I am now? And that may sound like a silly thing to have to ask, but I am a late bloomer in some things. And I was like, what is this? And my mentor she said, Alexi, I think that the way you've been thinking about your decisions is this productive or unproductive? Is this good for me or bad for me? And she said, did you know that every cell in your body, now I'm not science, this is like kind of it is science, but I'm giving it to you in a more poetic way. Every cell in your body, the little cells, when they're happy and safe, they expand and move toward. And that is the feeling of having a crush on somebody. It's the feeling if someone's like, let's go to sushi, and you're like, yes. Like that expansion. Do you know that feeling? Does everybody know the feeling of like, if someone gives you an invitation or puts food in front of you that's like yummy, 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 whatever, or you got a crush on someone, like everybody knows this feeling. And what's interesting is that when you really think about it, it's not a choice you make. It's a feeling of expansion, and it's real, and it's cellular. And she said, this rollerblading to you is expansive. And she said, on the other hand, when your cells are unhappy or unsafe, they contract and move away. And that's the feeling of, has anybody ever had food put in front of them that they had food poisoning from, or food you like, I will not eat that, that feeling of like, no, absolutely not. It's cellular. It is not like a choice, right? It is something you just feel, right? And what was so beautiful is she said, Alexi, I want you to try and start making decisions based on what is expansive to you versus always what is good for you, bad for you, productive, unproductive. Now, of course, we have to think about those other criteria as well. But when I started to shift in my life to thinking about what I had a crush on, with anything, with big decisions, with small decisions, I started to have less resistance to, it was easier to make decisions. And also, what is most fascinating, and this might relate more to like life outside of work. I don't know how this might relate to your life, but I think it's a really important thing to share, is that when we're in an expanded state, our cells are more buoyant. Like imagine an expanded cell. It's like you have a bunch of bouncy balls in your body. And that's why you could stay up all night with your friends, out dancing at a wedding, and wake up the next day and run 6 miles and not get injured, because you're expanded and you are buoyant, you are healthy, you are bouncing around, even though you haven't slept, because you're happy and expanded. Whereas if you are in a contracted state, so you stay up all night and are very stressful, or let's just say you sleep 10 hours, but it's a stressful situation for some reason, and you wake up and you're going to a stressful situation, your cells are like these glass raisins, and you're more susceptible to vulnerability, to injury, to all that. And I think it's just a thing to offer to you, and I hope it might be useful, because it takes away the secondary judgment of judging our decisions and our emotions. It allows us to like settle into like, do we have a crush on this, or is this food poisoning to me? And just as an additional option for how you make decisions, and knowing that, you know, it's not always up to us what is expansive or contractive. It's up to us to choose to listen or not, right? And that could be the last thing I'll say, and we can keep going, is there are people.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
It's all right, Barb. Don't worry about it.
there are people who we, without our choice, are expansive or contractive to us. And it's not always our choice. Like sometimes I'm around people and I'm like, you know, like this person is perfectly nice, they're great, but I just feel a little contracted by them. And I do think it's really important to recognize, because you know, we have to be in contractive situations sometimes, but at least recognizing it's not our decision whether or not something is expansive or contractive. It's our responsibility to recognize it, right? And
I have a question for you.
that's helpful.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, anything.
I mean, I've read Bravey, so I know some of your stuff, and you and I have, this is the 4th time you and I have had a conversation. So, you know, I've learned a little bit about you. But did running become, what did you say, constrictive or contractive for you?
So with running,
Because that was what ultimately was defining you for a period of time. So I'm wondering if
how it works.
Yeah, like just how that felt, and if it felt constricting to you at all.
Yeah. So look, also with the expansive and contractive stuff, it changes all the time, right? Sushi, expansive one day, contractive another. You know that feeling of like
Always expansive.
Right. Okay.
Sushi.
Always expensive
Yeah.
for you, but there are people who are like, I'm not in that sushi mood. You know what I mean? And so like it can change. And I think it's important to know that like it is something that we constantly can attune to. With running, the way that the most common contractive feeling I was getting was when I was like given a workout that I was meant to do, but it didn't feel like a good idea for whatever reason. I hadn't slept enough. I really like, it just wasn't. And some, you know, in some cases when I was training hard, I would have to do it anyway. But now when I run, I only do what feels expansive, right? I do whatever I want with running. What felt contractive, to answer your question, was the idea of dedicating every minute of every life to having a perfect body and going out there and doing it as I had done so flawlessly for that 10-year period. It felt contractive to train for the Olympics to me. And that was because I had outgrown the curiosity. I had felt like I really did it when I did it. And sometimes when we commit to something so intensely, we commit to it because we know it's not forever. And so when I got to the point where I felt like I had done what I really was curious about doing, I felt that it was only possible to commit like that because I knew it wasn't forever, right? So
Was Rio fun?
Rio was very fun because I embraced the chaos as opportunity. And I think that is the biggest thing between people enjoying their Olympics and not, is if you understand that the Olympics is the circus, you will go there, the village won't be fully set up, you will not be eating all the foods you're used to, your routine, like if you can see that all as like the wonderful part about it, then it's fun. And I had a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time alone because I wanted to people watch and I wanted to soak it all in. I didn't want to live in a bubble with all these people I knew. I wanted to like see it. And so I felt like a little Alice in Wonderland in the village, and I made it my home for a month. And you know what's interesting in thinking, look, I think I assume a lot about what you all do because I don't know. But what's interesting is that you're immersed in these little worlds for periods of time and then they disappear, right? Like you care a lot about this one property, I imagine, for a long time, and then it doesn't matter to you at all ever again, right? It's gone, it poof, but boom, bam, bomb. But when it does matter, it matters a lot. It's everything. And I think that with running with the Olympics, it was similar in that, I mean, in different ways, I can relate to things really, really mattering, or even with making movies, like certain things really, really, really matter. And it's important to like care, but also like have some knowledge that it won't be forever. And therefore you can commit in an interesting way when you know something isn't forever. You can almost commit more because if it's difficult, you know, it's not forever. If it's beautiful, you can enjoy that it's not forever. So you appreciate it. Like there's a lot about this kind of world hopping that is kind of a cool way to live life.
Is that a way that you can do things that, you know, you call constrictive, that necessarily you don't want to do, that don't feel good to you, but maybe you have to do them? I mean, if you're training for the Olympics, you had to follow the plan your coaches were giving you if you wanted to perform at a high level, stay, you know, not get hurt, all that kind of stuff. You had to kind of do the things you didn't want to do. Is this idea of knowing that it's not forever a way that you can get through some of the things that feel rough and you don't want to do, but you really kind of probably have to do in the pursuit of your goal?
Yeah, that's a really great thought. And yes, so the important thing with any, like, the important thing to understand is our why. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? And if we believe, so the why leads to the North Star, right? And the North Star can be going to the Olympics. The North Star can be success in a field. The North Star could be like getting through a year of something in particular. But underneath that North Star is kind of like a tree, right? It kind of falls and everything falls underneath it. And not everything that leads to that North Star is pleasant. But when we have to do something, like there were I did not want to run 100 miles a week, 125 miles. It's work. And I know it sounds simple, but it was really hard sometimes to do that and to say no to things, or to just to be around certain people. Like, I'm sorry, but like not all my teammates were like my friends, you know. It was just like, it was a lot. There was sponsor dynamics. I had to put myself in situations that didn't feel always pleasant. Like there was so much about it that was uncomfortable, but I knew why I was in those uncomfortable situations, and I believed in the North Star and I had committed to it. And I think this might be a good moment to talk about the incubator and the periods of time that we commit to those North Stars, because the periods of time denote what you were just talking about, which is that there's an end to this, there's a timeline that we are inside of. And let me be a little less convoluted here and just say that we benefit from committing to goals for a period of time, and during that interval of time, not checking in every minute about the North Star goal. So let's just, and what I recommend is not planning more than a year in advance for our lives. Like I know people have 5-year goals, 10-year goals, that's fine. But I mean, when you're in there doing the work, and the work is the good stuff, it's the hard stuff that we just talked about, it's the expansive and the contractive. And unless there's like a red flag, which is like your physical health, your mental health, beyond a place of of reasonable ability, you got to be in the incubator doing the work for a period of time, knowing that there's a check-in point. So it could be, hey, I have this North Star goal and I have a check-in point in a month from now. And that's when I'm going to check in with myself, with my mentors, with my partners, whatever it is that your core team is. But we do have to be in the incubator, like those little chicken eggs when they're like in elementary schools. We got to be doing the work and understand that there are those undulations, there's the unpleasant and the pleasant, but we are fundamentally aware that there is a check-in point that we have planned, that there is a goal that all of these actions, the pleasant and the unpleasant, are leading to. And that's it. It's simple, right? And then you get in there and you do the work and you don't question the goal itself, because that will take you out of actually doing the work. And work maybe is the wrong word, doing the actions that will lead you to your goals, right? You could just call them actions, and making the progress. So what I hope that is in reinforcing the idea that, it's not forever, but it's your responsibility to create the boundaries of time for yourself if it's not already laid out for you. So like the Olympics is a period of time that I didn't even determine, but there are other things that I do determine. I pick these chunks of times to commit to certain goals of mine, and I'm pretty committed with the pleasant and the unpleasant. But to be aware of the contractive during that time will at least allow me to build in activities and things that can counteract that, or just to have a sense of humor about it, right? Like some people that I have to interact with, I'm not thrilled about, but if I can like clown a little bit with myself or with someone I really trust about it, then it doesn't feel like it penetrates my castle. So let's talk about the castle real quick. So all of us, my best friend told me this, we are all castles, and some people are allowed in the castle anytime they want. And those are the people that can really like affect your soul with what they say. You care about what they say, they affect how you feel. And there are some people that like should be allowed in your castle, right? All the time. Some people you let in sometimes. Other people, they get the one-time pass occasionally, and other people, they stay on the front lawn, and other people don't even get to come into your kingdom. And that doesn't mean you're not interacting with people. It's how you have decided that someone can affect your core and who you really, your being, your stability, this and that. And yes, that's why castles have moats. Love that, Mindy. So I think that the people that we all interact with are not all our best friends. And I'm sure you already have great skills to have those boundaries for yourself, but those are boundaries that you build for yourself versus other people giving them to you. Those are your own boundaries. And that makes the contractive interactions or situations less personal, right? So yeah, it's a long answer to your question.
That's a great answer though. I wrote down, okay, so you have your goal, your North Star goal, you know what that is. And then at that point, here's what I heard you say, you can correct me. Once you've kind of come up with your North Star goal, let's not go back and revisit it. Just get on the path of pursuing it and checking in along the way. Because you said, don't question the goal, because it'll take you out of the work or the actions necessary to take it. So is that what you're saying? Is it, look, the goal has been placed on you, you have it for a reason, now go pursue it, even if it's harder than you thought?
Of course. Yeah, you have to suspend your disbelief at that point, right? So the big commitment is deciding to try for something.
Ben Hardy said the same thing to us last week. We had, I don't know, Alexi, if you're familiar with Ben Hardy's work, Dr. Ben Hardy, Gap in the Gain, 10X,
awesome.
better than 2X. He said the same thing, Nadine, to us last week, that you pick this almost impossible goal, and you have to then decide it's no longer impossible. I have my notes somewhere, but then you go pursue it. Alexi, when you knew you were an elite runner, did you need to be convinced you would someday be an Olympian, or did you know it?
I'll be honest with you. I had coaches who were like, you could take this goal seriously and it's a reasonable goal. And that was helpful. Like, I feel like it would be unkind to say that other people's belief in me didn't affect me and matter. It does matter. It's really nice and it's really wonderful. However, I think every person is a planet. So everyone's a planet. And the way the
It
world,
still isn't. Stop showing me.
Hold on, Denise. Hold on, Denise. Go stay on mute. Go ahead, Alexi.
it's okay. I love it. We're all in life, you know.
That's right. Yep.
So, okay, so if every person's a planet, and I'll answer your question. You're all planets. I'm a planet. The way the world sees us is the outside of the planet. It's the way the planet presents. It's what people see, whatever, your Mars, your Jupiter, whatever. But the way that we feel about ourselves, both like, you know, emotionally, confidence-wise, identity-wise, all the things, that's like the core of the planet. It's in the middle of the planet, and no one can actually see that but yourself. People that you're very close with, maybe your dog, can see it in a way, but really your core is your own thing. And ideally, I think, you know, those things are similar and match, which is another conversation. But what I'm trying to say here is that what makes your core solid? And I think it's a combination of experience, and like experience meaning I know I've done this, and this, and that makes me feel solid and able to do that, and that. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
like, you've done your training, you've had your experiences, you've had your whole history leading up to this. That makes your core more solid. And that's one way. And there are other ways to feel confident and able. People believing in you can make that feel more solid. Your like commitment to a process can make it more solid, meaning like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't have the experience yet, but I'm someone who will do this, and this. Like it's basically a combination of like your credentials that you already have and your like your belief that you're someone who could. And I'm only saying this to say that like, no, like nobody's done anything till they've done it, but everybody is capable, and it's a combination of things inside that make you feel able and decide to do something. And when we talked about that cellular expansion, to feel expanded about something is just as important as feeling prepared to do something. Because somebody who has a mad crush on somebody, even if they're like an invisible girl in the back of the class, if she is like so crushed, like that person is probably just as capable of getting the guy as the hot girl in the front who like is already present in his purview. Okay, if we go back to the crush. So what I mean is like, you could feel entirely ready to chase a goal, or you could feel entirely excited and ready to do whatever it takes to get it. And those things are both meaningful. And to have a combination of the two, I feel expanded and prepared is great. Or I just feel super prepared, but I'm a little like not sure. That's okay. Or I'm totally unprepared, but I'm a bouncy ball that's going to bounce my butt forward into that, you know, goal. So I hope what I'm basically saying is like, your combination of what makes your core solid is going to be so unique to you for any given circumstance, but it is not one thing. It's not just preparation. It's not just experience. It's not just excitement. It's not just, and it's a combination, and it means you're all capable of it, but it's okay that your ratios are different than your friends.
Well, I want to talk about that too. You said suspend your disbelief. I love it. What Dr. Hardy said was, when you want to make a change, you will first resist it. And so it's recognizing that we're going to resist these things. We got to suspend our disbelief. Then we kind of know our North Star and why we're going there. Others are going to believe in us. By the way, others aren't going to believe in you too, but we got to understand there will be people who do believe us and will run alongside us and support us. And then you said that you commit to a process. We talk about that stuff all the time. Just make the decision that I'm going to follow this process and I'm going to trust the results. Someone who's out in front of me or has done this before, has shared a process with me, I'm going to trust it and I'm going to pursue it. I like it. Now, you have talked about, and that's the thing you just basically talked about goes to this. When you ran in Rio, you set a national record, but you were prepared and had fun. And what you told me about having fun was you didn't look at it that there were all these other ladies you were running against. You were out there to run your race. We work in an industry that is unnecessarily comparative. And what I mean by that is every single person who's watching this, Alexi, has different goals. They have a different finish line. And some of them want to sell 300 homes a year, and some of them want to sell 30, and some of them want to sell 10, and some want to sell 3, and everything in between. So we have these different finish lines, and yet we're unnecessarily comparative. We look at the agent who took 10 listings this month, and we're like, well, why didn't I do that? Well, your goal wasn't that. Your goal was to take one, and you took one, so you still won. Can you talk about that, about kind of running your own race?
For sure. It's so, this is something I learned when I moved to LA and I wasn't around, I'll just be honest with you, I was around more like sub-elite athletes, which are chasing goals, but not Olympic training athletes. I learned that one of the things that my friends here that I run with were not aware of is that I did not go to every race with the goal to run my personal best. I didn't. I would go to most races, and it'll relate back to you, but I would go to most races with a single goal in mind that was not the same as anybody else at the race. So it would be like, let me practice my warm-up routine. On this one, I'm going to practice the middle 5 laps. On this one, we're going to just practice the last 2 laps. And if I had gone, and the reason why is because you cannot go to every race super, super peaked, or it's like, you know, every body is like a pencil. And if you sharpen it too much, it breaks. You only want to be super peaked for the Olympics. But if I had gone to those races, and I have friends here who will go to races and be like, they race every weekend and they're like, I'm not running a personal bet. I'm like, but what were you there to do? And it kind of comes back to you all and all of us knowing when we go into that incubator, or whatever it is, however you orient the year, your goals for the houses for the year, you know, you got to know what your unique goal is, because your North Star is much bigger. Your big North Star is bigger than that number of houses. Your big North Star is who are you? Where's your life going as a human, which is just as your name, as you, right? This job and these goals must fit into a bigger North Star of like, of where you came from, of where you want to go, of the rest of your family situation, of your needs, of your, do you know what I mean? And so to know your unique goal is the best way to have your feet firmly planted on the ground when you go and you chase those goals. And knowing that about yourself will allow you to like celebrate what you deserve to celebrate on that journey, and to be more effective in getting to that goal, because the goal of selling 300 houses presents a much different life than the goal of selling 3. It looks different. So, but as for like, what do you do about comparison? Is that like really the question? Is like,
yeah, I mean, because
you
went out and I'll tell the story very quickly. When you set a national record for Greece in the Olympics, you finished 17th in that race. There was a world record set in that race. The athlete who won that set a world record, but you finished. I mean, what you've told me in the past was you finished feeling pretty awesome, and yet some of your competitors did not have that same experience, even if they ran a really amazing race for them.
So everybody got lapped in my race because a girl broke the world record. So everyone got lapped. No one had been lapped before because they're all the best in their country. And some people, when they got lapped, they freaked out and they like went out the back, like, you know, didn't do very well, or tried to go with that girl, even though they're not at that level. And I knew I would get lapped because my coach told me, and maybe that's a good thing to point out, is like, if your goal is to sell a different number of houses, or if your goals are different than your peers, it's your responsibility to acknowledge that before you go into the field of play. Because then when you do get lapped, you're like, I knew this would happen. Go on, good for you. I'm very proud of you. I am on my little journey. And I did a lot better because of that. But with the comparison thing, it's kind of like, look, if we go back to the planet metaphor, it's basically acknowledging that what you're saying is that in your industry, people see you guys all as Jupiters sometimes, or it's easy for you to be like, we're all Jupiters. We all want the same thing. We're all Jupiters. And you're like, wait a minute. No. My core is me. I'm not a Jupiter. I live in the same universe as some Jupiters, but I'm not Jupiter. I'm Mars. I'm Venus, whatever. Right. And it's your responsibility to know it about yourself and to be okay that not everybody will understand that about you. Right? Not everybody is going to like understand your goals. You could tell them and people will respond to confidence. Like when you say like, no, this is my goal. And you kind of have that elevator pitch, which is like, the short version of your identity or your goals. People actually, if you don't tell them, they'll assign it to you, and they'll most likely assign you as Jupiter because it's easier and simpler, and they're uninformed about the rest of your life.
I feel like I'm Pluto. I can't decide if I'm a planet or not.
That's great. Yes. Oh my
I go
God.
in and out of this decision making
Oh,
process
you're
all the
just
time.
what is it? A superstar?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
What is your North Star now? Because it's changed over the last few years. What is it that you're pursuing now, and how are you doing on that?
So, okay, really good way to talk about the things we can and can't control. Okay, so because you and I have talked about like the housing economy being something that like is ever evolving and we can't control. So in my life, I've always felt like I have a whiteboard of the white fictitious whiteboard or blackboard of like my goals. And then there's the whiteboard or blackboard of things that the universe brings to me. So there's like both, right? And I think it's important to have both. Like you don't want to just be the person that's like, what is the universe bringing me? Like we need agency, but it's also cool to balance the things you want with the things that are being offered to you and the rivers that are flowing, right? And for me, so I knew I wanted to continue with running in this like different way, and that has been really lovely. So I will continue to run and guide and try things that feel like I have a crush on them. But what I've been wanting to do more and more is I want to move into television because writing, I've been making movies, but television to me, I'm just being honest, feels a lot more like a athletic career translated into the arts. Because like a television season, there's like good episodes and okay episodes. There's characters that sometimes go to the next season. Like it feels a lot more like a sports team. But Hollywood is on strike right now. So it's actually crazy. Like all of the TV pitches, I was pitching to like Disney and Nickelodeon a couple months ago, and it just stopped. So all my friends who are writers, they can't work. And like, I can't work as a writer, but thankfully I'm multifaceted and I feel very grateful about that. But I just wanted to point out that like, it's so crazy to have like, we can't have one thing ruin our entire lives. And so it was a reminder to me that I want those goals, but I can't control when the strike is going to end. So I started a company, and a lot of people who follow me like wear glitter when they run, because I do. And we hired a scientist, and this is we're making a glitter that stays on when you sweat, because there's glitter that comes off when you sweat. So I'm making a glitter. So I started a company, and that's really new for me. And we're slowly like developing it, and it'll come out next year. So the book that I made is called Bravey, and the company's called Bravey. And so I'm learning what it is to be a CEO, I guess. And so my North Star, to be honest, is to have this company move forward and learn what that is, and to keep stay curious with the things I can do and not fret about the things I can't. I don't have any goal that I like feel like is as strong as the Olympics, but I think that's a better way for me to approach life right now, because I was so singularly focused that now I'm like, where are the rivers flowing? Like, where can I be myself most?
I have a question for you about that, but everyone needs permanent glitter. I've always said that. Josie put in the chat that Brittany Charbonneau is going to love the glitter. We've had Brittany on some stuff before, and she would love the glitter. We have to make sure Brittany knows about it. Okay. Question for you. So you go pursue this path to create some TV for Disney or Nickelodeon or whomever is interested. And on that pursuit, you face roadblocks that have nothing to do with you, but you can't do anything. This happens to people all the time. What's your advice to kind of pivot, as we say, and when you face some adversity or roadblock or a challenge, and yet to keep moving? What's your advice?
Well, I think the only thing we really can do is take stock of like how open the road is there. Like, is there another way around it, right? Like, can you physically keep going in a different way? Then you pivot. And if you can't, or it's like, this is actually like on pause, either temporarily or permanently, then like, I think to not let, I mean, you can feel sad about something, but like, if something isn't your fault and isn't in your control, it just is. So you put your computer on sleep mode for that thing and you pivot. Like you really just, it's kind of like that decision-making thing of like, it's just that simple, right? If there's another way to keep going down the road, then go down the road in a different way. And if the road is blocked temporarily or permanently, pick a different road. And it just, yeah, and don't overcomplicate it, because can I share like this really interesting thing about things like that?
Yep. Okay,
so I heard this, I think it was on a podcast, and this is an odd thing I'm going to share with you, but I just think it is so cool. It is so cool. So this is like a fictitious circumstance that has nothing to do with like religion or afterlife, but it was basically like, what if we had infinite lives? And this is like a thought experiment, not like a belief. So you have infinite lives, okay? And every life you chose the dice of the things that happen to you, not like what you do, but like the circumstances, right? Basically, the thought was like, at first you would pick all the perfect circumstances, no resistance, no dead ends, no nothing, right? Like I think we all might want that. And they're basically like, eventually you might get bored and you might end up putting the dice down in the way that your life looks right now. You might. And the idea was not that this life is the perfect life, and that, because I think I'd be kidding myself if I was like, I would love for everything that happened to me to happen to me. It's like, no, I don't feel that way. But the beautiful thing to me about this is just thinking for a moment, because our imagination is our greatest tool. You can imagine whatever, if it's in your favor. Imagine that the things that are going to happen to you that are unexpected, so those dead ends that we just talked about that you can't control, imagine that they're not your fault and that they were going to happen no matter what. This is like the board game you are on. And what I think is cool about it is that, one, it feels like less like you're losing, because you're like, no, this was a thing that I might have actually picked, which is very unlikely, but this is just an experiment, or this is just a thought. It's a thought. And that it's going to happen no matter what. So this is the board game. And I just think it is so cool, because it's basically saying, I am this little cartoon in this world. I'm going to go through it. There's going to be these boulders along the way. And yet that I still get to play the game. And I think creating like a little bit of a game out of some of these barriers feels less sorry for ourselves. And it feels a little more like a game.
Yep.
And you know, your lives are all extremely important, but what you're doing and the boundaries and barriers that we're talking about professionally, you know, it's important that you make a living and that you feel happy with yourselves, but like, the unpredictability of the worlds that you and I are in can only be described best as a game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I hope that helps. I know that's
It
like
does. I love it a lot. I
simple
think about
way.
there's a Disney short that Huey, Dewey, and Louie wish it were Christmas every day. And so every
Oh,
morning that gets up and it's
right.
Christmas, and then like after the 5th day in a row of Christmas, it's really boring. And
Right.
they wish for the other stuff to come back. Okay, here's my last question before we kick it.
Yeah.
And thank you for doing this for us again. I appreciate you so very much.
I love
You have accomplished many things that most people will not. In fact, if you go and look, any of the things you've done, some people would be considered elite if they did one of them. Okay, you've competed in the Olympics. You're an author, which, by the way, when it was released, was a hit immediately. You have made movies and TV. You have, now you're starting your own company. You're doing all of these things. Most people on the planet would be satisfied with accomplishing just one of them. When people think of you, what do you want them to think about?
Oh, so like what planet are they calling? I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
I think like probably that, well, I'll be honest with you. The thing that I struggled with growing up was that a lot of people, so I don't wear my challenges always like on my sleeve. Like some people, athletes in particular, they really like they kind of swim in that like grind mentality, and they share that, and they're like, I work hard, or life is hard, da, da, da. And it's like, I feel that life is very hard, and I feel that I work really hard, but I don't think that I've chosen to like have that be my narrative, because it's not, there's only so much kind of energy you can put into the world. It doesn't feel that productive to me or helpful. But I hope that people see me as someone who tries her best and who does work really hard, because sometimes I feel like I make things look really easy, and some people, I'm just being honest, and they're like, of course you got this, of course you got that, because you're you. And that feels so insulting, because I work so hard and I'm so thoughtful, and I want people to understand that the choice to be optimistic and not share every challenge, or to share it very thoughtfully in a book instead of in every social media post, is the choice that I made. But I would like people to understand how much thought and effort was put into that existence.
Alexi, thank you. I appreciate you, and thank Liam too, for you guys
Oh.
reached back out to us and said that you'd like to come back. And I want to thank you for doing that. Our group appreciates it, and we appreciate it. And we're going to get you in person at an event sometime. We would love to learn from you. And then we're going to run together. Is that okay? Can we go running together?
Yes.
Would that be all right? That'd be awesome.
Just go
Oh,
slow for me. Everyone's always like, you go
please.
slow. I'm like,
This
I
is
go
the woman
really
who's
slow,
used to run 100 miles a week. I ran 100 miles a month and thought I was doing great. But yes, that would be awesome. So I love it. How can people connect with you, Alexi?
Well, just social media is at Alexi Pappas, like 2 P's, like potato in Spanish with an extra P. And just know that, social media is part of my job. I always feel like I need to tell people that, because it's like some people's social media is their primary work, sometimes it's secondary work. And so you don't have to buy the shoes I'm selling you, but that's where I am for things other than that too. You know what I mean? I feel like I should be
Listen, friend, I hear you 100%. I absolutely hear you. You're the best. Have a great time in New York, running
you.
like a fairy with glitter and doing whatever you do. Have a great time at that. Congratulations again on the new book, the young adult version of Bravey. I know it's going to be an impactful story. Thank you for spending time with us today, Alexi. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And everybody, just choose whatever it is you want in life. And I wish you all that you wish for yourselves, which is what my grandpa used to say to me. I think it's the nicest thing that anyone could say. So have a good day. And thank you for having me on your team. I'm grateful.
Thank you for being back. Everybody, we'll talk about some ahas from Alexi tomorrow morning, 7:30 at pivotshiftcall.com. And everybody else, we'll see you then. Alexi, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, friends. Thank
Night.
you.
Thank you.